Welcome to Change Chat, where we discuss the use of intentional technologies and the impact on our lives. If you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, and follow on your preferred platform. Now sit back and prepare for a lively conversation. Welcome to another edition of Change Chat. This is Ed, and it's nice to see all of you. And I'm very happy to be joined today by my longtime friend, Vlad Kostek, and we are going to be talking to a couple of people from Aluratek. And as you know, Vlad and I have had the Aluratek frames, and we have been talking quite a bit about Spectra 6 and that e-ink technology. Vlad has way more experience with it than I do. But we're going to talk about that today. We're going to kind of deep dive into that and be able to provide information to both of our communities regarding this innovative and what I have found to be a very phenomenal technology. What I'd like to do is introduce our guests first. So we have John Willicow from Aluratek. He is the president and CEO, and we have Andrew Wang, who is VP of VP of Product Management. And I'm going to ask if you, John, first, and then Andrew, if you would introduce yourselves really quickly, and then we can go into a little bit about the company as well. So, John, if you'd like to start us off.
Sure. Thanks, Ed. Happy to join you guys. I'm John. I'm the co-founder with Andrew of Aluratek, serving as the president and CEO. It's kind of interesting, the timing of this, Ed. We started this journey 20 years ago this week. So we're just celebrating our 20-year anniversary since we've started the company, and it's an exciting week for us. We have a big celebration tomorrow here at the company, and looking forward to that. But yeah, Aluratek was really founded on the idea that we wanted to find simple solutions for people, everyday needs, and try to price them affordably. And it's actually served us pretty well. We work really hard in trying to find good quality products that answer the need to, problems. And we're a solution provider. And the key is really trying to do it at a price that's affordable for the consumer. And we've done pretty well just trying to hit those key points from a company standpoint. So yeah, so 20 years and still going, and excited about the new technology that we have coming. And maybe Andrew, if you want to talk to us a little bit about yourself, and we can jump into the technology a little bit.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Hi, Vlad. My name is Andrew. Been doing technology for forever. So kind of actually more of a hardware design, chip designer when I got out of school. So did that for a few years, and then kind of joined with John and started with Aluratek 20 years ago. So now time went by fast. We kind of learned everything through other ways, technology, and we do everything ourselves. So learn stuff that we never knew how to do before we started the business. But it's been a great ride, and a lot of new technologies that we've been doing. And then ePaper e-ink is kind of one of the new technologies that we kind of delve around, and then we've been working on this for quite a few years. I think this is a good time to have this product out in the market. I think a lot of good feedback on this as well. So we're looking to kind of improve the product along the way, and let's see if we can make this even a better product than it is right now.
Yeah, and if I could just add to that real quick, Ed, one of the key product categories from a company standpoint that Aluratek focuses on is the digital picture frames. So this evolution of technology in the e-ink space bodes really well for us from a company standpoint. So it's just kind of natural progression for us. It's pretty amazing how the technology's changed since we first launched. Actually, we launched in 2008, our first digital picture frame. And just seeing the technology evolve from plugging in your USB thumb drive and your media cards to now everything's smartphone, app-based, Wi-Fi streaming, touch screen with all the bells and whistles. It's really evolved. And then, yeah, with the new Spectra technology, it's interesting to see where we are. So it's exciting times for us.
Yeah, and I'd like to take just a minute because I want to let Vlad, most of my audience already knows Vlad, but I want to kind of let Vlad reintroduce himself real quick. And then I'd like to dig into kind of the Spectra 6 technology a little bit and why you all found that so interesting. And just, how it differs, in your opinion, from traditional photo frames. But Vlad, why don't you go ahead, do a quick intro, and then maybe they can have a conversation, and you, as far as you know a lot about this technology as well.
Sure. Yeah. So thanks for having me on, Ed. My name is Vlad. I originally have a background in engineering, and I pivoted a while back, and still do stuff with engineering, but I do tech reviews that are more long term, so stuff that I use day in day out, and just got really into e-ink and Spectra 6 as well, and that is a good amount of the portion of stuff that I share on my channel as well.
First question, I think, to both of you all is kind of what's the most exciting aspect of Spectra 6 technology versus, and not really versus, but what got you really excited about the technology in addition to digital photo frames, which, like you said, you all have been doing for a long time. I'm just curious what that would be.
I can talk to you in more of like, because more of my role, Ed, is more on the sales and marketing side of things here at the company, even though president CEO, I'm more sales centric. And for me, it was getting the customer feedback. We work really closely with our reseller partners, major brick and mortar retailers specifically, and just getting the feedback from them that their sales reps in the stores were getting a lot of customers looking for a way to have a digital photo frame in the home that didn't require power. So one of the challenges that they were getting was people wanted the digital photo frames and they wanted to place them up on the walls without really having to have power there and running electrical cabling and wiring to certain locations that they would just normally hang up a frame on a wall. So again, we provide solutions. And we're like, hey, okay, we understand that there's a need for this type of product. And Andrew, through his contacts in the product management, product development role, was talking to me about this new technology that's actually pretty good in terms of just the product and how it renders itself as a solution versus some of the earlier iterations of it. And we looked at it and we're like, hey, this is pretty good. We're excited about the possibility of cutting that power cord and allowing the customers to answer that need of placing a digital frame, if you will, on a wall without having to power it constantly. So that's why we were excited about it. And getting the feedback again from our customers was really the initial driver of us searching for this type of a solution. And that's kind of how we launch a lot of our products. We listen to our customers and what are their customers looking for when they come into the stores. And we kind of take that feedback and run with it and see if we can deliver a viable solution.
Andrew, do you have anything to add? Because I'm kind of curious, since you kind of had this and maybe you had it in mind, or those contacts that John was talking about, what really made you think now is the time to kind of enter into this space and the technology's ready for that?
I've been probably looking at using ePaper, e-ink for display for kind of started maybe 3, 4 years ago. At that time, we kind of had some prototypes looking at how picture quality, resolution, everything, how everything is. But at that time, even we like the idea that you don't have to plug it in, you can put it anywhere. That's kind of what we're looking for. But the picture, the quality, then the color wasn't there, let's say 3, 4 years ago. Finally, probably a year and a half ago, we had the Spectra 6 that came out. We did some more demo, did some more picture testing and whatnot. We think that it is the time, price point is a lot better now too versus before when we first started looking at this. At that time, even the quality is not there, but even at that pricing, we said there's no way we can sell this. But since a year and a half ago, we look at the actual product and the pricing and say, okay, I think this is time that we can actually launch this product with, to the market for average consumers. Back then, you can kind of launch it for business, they can do it for display. Those, they have able to kind of pay the dollar for this. But I think now it's more of a mainstream product now that people want to have hang in the wall, paint, portraits, and just do anywhere. Then you don't have to charge batteries. So I think that's why we launched last year. Well, just based on the quality of the product, the pricing that makes sense for us to introduce a product.
I'd like to invite Vlad in here too, because I mean, full disclosure, I absolutely love my Aluratek frame. I mean, it sits in our living room and we use it to display family photos. And I just love the technology. I mean, you all were kind enough to send me one to review. And I just love that the technology, the way it looks. We use it for family photos. I know a lot of people use it for art. And Vlad, I know you use it for different graphics and pictures that aren't necessarily photographs.
Yeah, I keep mine on the outside the door right there. I pulled it out though, because that's one of the nice things is you can just move it around, you know. Andrew, quick question. So I know last year when I was at CES and we met and I saw the kind of unveiling at your booth, I believe I went to this e-ink area and then they pointed me in your guys' direction. Could you guys talk about the experience of working with e-ink themselves?
Yeah, no, I've been working with the company Inc. They're very supportive of this product, category. They think that with the new color ink displays, they also see there's a channel for this now. Before they are doing the kind of the retail price tag and everything, the black and white. So I think they do see with the current Spectra 6 solution, they do see that the quality is there for people to use as a picture frame. So they've been working with them closely, try to get this everything fine tuned, everything for the pictures. So definitely they're the only one doing the e-ink papers. So they do see the future in this category, and that's kind of why we've been working with them for quite some time now, try to get this product to the market.
And so I know there are new sizes and resolutions coming out from e-ink. Have you guys considered, expanding the product range?
Yeah, so we were looking at a 32-inch, and also going forward, they are trying to get better colors, resolutions, and for the future release. So we're still working with them on future product as well. But yeah, we are looking at different sizes.
Nice. That's great.
That leads me to a follow-up question. So thinking about how the technology is evolving with new sizes potentially coming out with increases in resolution, all of that, where do you see this technology in the next 3 to 5 years? What do you see as the potential improvements over that time period as far as resolution, as far as what you all would think would be kind of the sweet spot for what this should look like as a digital e-ink alternative to a traditional photo frame?
Right, because as we've been doing digital photo frame for a long time, and we do have a lot of customers comparing this to IPS display picture frame. When we compare to that, people are gonna, oh, it's not bright enough, resolution not there, and the color is not as vivid. So, we are working with Ing to improve that, even the transitions. People saying it takes 20 seconds for transitions. So we are doing that with software to improve. So it only goes to the new picture maybe in 10 seconds. So there's a lot of improvements on to kind of get closer to IPS display. I don't think we'll ever get there just because, there's a trade-off with batteries. IPS, you have to have it plugged in. So there are different applications for it. We still sell a lot of the regular traditional Wi-Fi IPS frames. I have one sitting at my desk. So there are places for that. But then for more the e-paper displays, people like to hang on the wall. To be honest, I don't have a picture frame in the house right now because my wife doesn't want to have a power cord going, just hanging down the wall. But for this, she's okay with it. She said, "Oh, I like this. I can hang it anywhere." So I do think there's a lot of application for this. With the improvement in the colors and everything, I think it will be even more mainstream, replacing some of those, picture that people hang on the wall. And instead of just having the same picture, people can just change it every, few days, few months, and they don't have to take down the frame or they don't have to remove it to do anything with it. So I think eventually the market will be bigger for this. type of frames.
I appreciate this perspective. And I think, if you're trying to compare this to an IPS frame, and Vlad, you can jump in here as well. I don't think that's the right comparison, at least for me. And one thing I've noticed is that older photographs, and maybe this is just because I have a bunch of old photographs because I'm older, but they tend to look even better on this type of technology and this type of frame than the newer digital photographs. And I don't know if that's just the way they're scanned in and the resolution, but I have pictures from 20, 30 years ago that just look beautiful when they're displayed on this frame, and even better than some of the newer photographs that we've taken with our phones that are, high resolution. So I'm curious as to anybody's thoughts on that, because we've noticed it just on our own home.
I think it's probably due to the dithering that results in a bit of a graininess. And so I think it probably suits photos of that era a little bit better. Whereas if you take, a 50 megapixel photo now and try to put it on a 150 DPI display, you can get some good color variation, but you're not going to get that crispness, So I think maybe I'm not 100% sure because I haven't seen the photos you're talking about, but maybe that could be a result of just the film, that it was shot on originally. I assume if it's 30 years ago, it wasn't digital, right?
Yeah, it wasn't digital. No, we digitized them. We scanned them in.
Yeah. But yeah, that's interesting that you I haven't actually thrown a lot of old photos, like some of my film photos. I haven't thrown any of those on, so maybe I'll play around with that.
Yeah, and I was and this is just a question that I had because, Vlad just pulled out his outside of the frame and had it there to show.
You got Velcro.
That seems to be fairly unique in the space that you have those two modes. And I think it seems very in line with the way you all operate with it being a digital photo frame. And I just wondered what made you decide to go ahead and include like that acrylic stand and have it be a frameless experience as well. And whether that was, a strategic decision or whether it was just, this is another option we can offer.
Yeah, that was just direct feedback again from our customers that we work with closely. And it was actually their suggestion. They love the fact that it doesn't need to be powered, and they love the fact that you can place it pretty much anywhere, more of like on the wall, like as a hanging solution. But then by adding the ability to remove the panel and including the acrylic stand, now we just opened up a lot more opportunities of placement. So, and it wasn't that difficult for us to make that change. And so we thought, like, why not give it some more versatility by allowing it to kind of sit on a desktop or countertop or versus just hanging on a wall.
Yeah, and also we have a lot of people, business or they want to go to trade shows and they want to display, items on, they don't have outlets there. They don't have a wall to hang on. So they'll bring this as a signage in a way. So they can just put on their, the table itself at trade shows or even restaurants. We have restaurants that can use as a menu. They can place it anywhere. So I think that we thought, oh, let's make it so that they can just put it on a stand instead of on the wall. So this way that for those customers, they actually have, that's kind of what they prefer to use.
Yeah. When you guys explore new sizes, do you think you'll stick with that design?
Well, I think because if it's a smaller size, let's say the 8 or 10-inch, we might just do the kind of the stand because I think 10 might be a bit too small for the wall. So it depends on the actual frame around it. For this one, we actually made it a lot bigger on when we hang on the wall. So we see the mat's a bit kind of wide versus other brands. But for the 10-inch, depends on how wide the mat's going to be. If it's going to be a slimmer profile, we'll probably just have more of a kind of desktop version of it, tabletop.
So it would be kind of like the actual just panel itself, like this.
Right. We still have a mat around it. Just going to be a bit thinner, so that. But then in that case, it might be more of a tabletop solution.
Yeah. That's great because I think a lot of what I've seen, we've seen a lot of new manufacturers or companies that are now doing Spectra 6. It seems like everyone just kind of took the the matte and I've gotten, my pronunciation was originally wrong, but I believe it's pronounced passepartout because people corrected the hell out of me on a video one time. But I think everyone just kind of ran with that design. So that's why I like that you guys have that option, but you can also change it to this. Because, like for this, if I want to display like a graphic comic, it just looks a little out of place in something like that one right there, right? So it's, I think there's a big gap in the market in that space where a lot of people comment, they're like, I don't want something that looks like a piece of art. I just want to display like a movie poster or something easy, like that. And you guys provide one of the only solutions. The only other one I know of is the Samsung EDMX. I'm talking about commercial, right? Where I know a lot of people that use this stuff for signage, there's no bezel at all. But in terms of like the one that people can just buy, those are the only two I know of.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting point, is the consumer market and the commercial market, and how this can kind of serve both in some ways, since it was already in the commercial market a little bit more, at least this, before it was capable of really doing photographs, it was used to digital signage quite a bit, or earlier iterations of it. And I like the idea of it being a dual purpose technology.
So John, what industry did you come from before?
Sure. Yeah, so a little bit more on my background. So background's accounting and finance. Started off doing corporate accounting, and then I worked for another company, also in the electronics kind of tech industry, called Belkin Components.
Yeah.
And then I left Belkin to go work for a startup company called IoGear, and that's where I met Andrew. And then left IoGear. Him and I both left to go start Aluratek back in 2000. One of the main product categories that we've played in since 2008 is the digital picture frame. So this is a great evolution for us as a company, the new technology and expanding our product mix in this space. And I feel like this is the next generation picture frame. I feel with the advances that we're having with the smartphones and apps, and more people, like my mom, she's not technical at all, but she's got a new iPhone. I was shocked because she's used to those flip phones, and now she's wanting, can you send me pictures? So she lives in Ohio. I'm here in California. Can you send me some pictures of the grandkids? And so she's really loving the Wi-Fi technology. And then now she can hang this frame on her wall, which she wants to, and I can update it and send pictures, from California, and she doesn't need to worry about powering it on. So yeah, I think that we're going to continue to see the prices come down from a cost of goods standpoint. And I still think that there's the ability to improve the technology. It seems like they're working hard, the e-ink manufacturers, and improving the technology there. So we're going to get a better, even quality product at a more affordable price. And we're kind of at that point now where we're just early in that product life cycle, and the early adopters are jumping on board, but it's going to become mainstream. So it's coming. So we're excited to be one of the pioneers in this new technology.
Yeah, I gave one to my mom as well, and she loves throwing like stuff she's painted on there and whatnot. I agree with you. Like, I think it's it's cool that you can display something that you don't need to run power to. So you can change locations, right? So let's say someone had your product and they wanted to use the stand. They could also then switch it to somewhere that's wall mounted, and it's kind of versatile in that sense. And that's all without having to plug it in, right? And with larger sizes, you can fit bigger homes with that stuff. And a part of the issue is like, in my living room out there, I have some pieces of art that I've had for like 10 years. And one of them, this huge photo, I've just kind of gotten sick of. So I'll probably end up putting a big e-ink frame over there, and every month I can just change that and have some art that I won't get tired of. So I think you're right. In places like hotels, shops, stuff like that, it makes a lot of sense because they can just have an initial purchase of all the stuff there, and then they can change it on the fly, or they can customize it or have a tailored experience towards, I don't know, someone that's visiting the hotel or the conference room there or something like that. I agree with you. I think it's kind of the future of digital art.
Yeah, what we've done, Vlad, personally, it's kind of cool. We created a little collage. So we'll have 6 panels up on the wall. And then when we take family trips, we'll basically rotate out the different pictures from that trip. And it's pretty exciting for my wife and the kids to just kind of look at the different photos. It's kind of cool to just have like a different picture every once in a while.
Yeah. And it's something like Andrew, you're talking about the IPS ones. Like when everyone looks at that, it's trying to create a farce, but everyone knows it's a screen, right? Whereas most people, I've never had anyone that's come to my house and ask, like, is that e-ink?
Yeah, and I was going to jump in real quick. I'm going to show a 30-plus-year-old photo here real quick. Don't judge the hair because this is a long time ago. But this is me and my mom and my sister years ago. So this is a 35-year-old photo at least. And, I think it looks beautiful. And to your point earlier, Andrew, this is why my wife, Melissa, lets me hang it on the wall is because there's no power cord. So I think that to your point, being able to share with family because Melissa's parents are getting older and we have a photo frame that we can send things to them all the time for the grandkids. This, we have it change every day and we have a 10 photo cycle because that's what the app allows. So my question for you all is with the app right now, which is Wi-Fi, and we love that component of it. And there are different approaches, NFC, a lot of different ways of doing this. Do you all see the library growing at all at some point, or being able to have like a deeper rotation so that maybe you could set this up to be once weekly and go through the year? Or I'm just curious what you see the future being of the app and kind of how you can customize that experience as a user.
Okay. So as the app itself, we do see that we are adding a library there. So, in addition to your own portraits, your own pictures, family pictures, trip pictures. We'll put some artworks in there for people to use. To a lot of people, they just, put some, you can rotate that to artworks, just download it, send it to the app. You can send it anywhere, kind of with the Wi-Fi that you mentioned. So we are doing that. We are also thinking of to increase the storage, but we don't think that, people want to change it every hour, but we do have requests. People say, oh, can we do more pictures? So we are looking at different options on providing that. So we get the feedbacks and we try to, kind of mentioned before, we're going to try to improve this to do more library pictures, do more pictures, or any other suggestions, really. Right now we do slideshows through, depends on weekly schedules, and we'll see if we need to be adjusted on the different time and how often people want to change it. As you know, we can always update that through the app, just a push update, so it's easier for us to do that change.
Yeah, and I kind of want to double down on that a little bit because I appreciate, the comment just made about I don't know that anybody would want to change it hourly. A big thing we cover on my channel is intentional technologies. And Vlad, you can correct me if you disagree on this, but I think this is a very intentional technology. I think the idea of this being something that you put on your wall like you would a photograph or like you would a painting or an image, and you let it sit for a while. I mean, we do it daily just because it's got phenomenal battery life, but we could go to weekly and it wouldn't hurt anything. And I think if you went to hourly, then it becomes trying to compete with a technology that may already do that better, which is an IPS frame. So I don't know that you would want to do that. So just curious your thoughts on that.
Hourly is also like, if you do it daily versus hourly, that's going to reduce the battery 24x, right? So it's like, then you are foregoing some of the benefits of having it be cordless. But
Correct.
yeah,
Yeah.
like you
So
had,
we,
I change it every day, once a day.
yeah. So we set it to be more of a weekly or even monthly thing. But, if customer do request for it, that can always be done. But as you mentioned, that, the battery life gonna be, not gonna be there, and we don't want them to take it down and charge it again. Yeah, so that's a trade-off there in between.
Have you guys considered doing any form of widgets? So having some sort of like a calendar view or showing like a daily schedule or thing like that, or weather information that would be, I guess, maybe adjacent to also showing images?
And right now, it's more on the refresh rate. So let's say if we want to do, calendar, depends on how often you want to update it. So that's kind of the trade-off. Say if you want to update that every hour, well, the battery life going to be degraded. So we don't want to keep refreshing it. So it depends, so for items that are going to be refreshed, might be harder to do as well. You don't want to be outdated information, but at the same time, I don't want to refresh it too often on the server side. So that's kind of the trade-off to see what item we can add on there.
Yeah, and that brings me to another question because I don't know. I mean, and maybe there's definitely a demand out there for some kind of widget. And John, you mentioned your background in sales, so I'm sure you've probably heard that about having weather information and all of that. I'm more interested in like multiple views of photos. So, for example, as the frame gets larger, and if you really wanted to turn it into a collage on a frame, rather than having multiple frames, is there something in the works to kind of do that where you would split the screen like you do on an IPS frame to where you would have maybe two images side by side or maybe split into fours? I'm curious
Yeah.
if you've been thinking about that at all.
That's a great point,
I
Ed.
think for that point, we probably have to do that within the app itself before submitting over. So let's say we can kind of within the app, you kind of create a collage. You adding 3 or 4 pictures into one collage, and then you transmit over to the frame itself. That can be easily done, on the larger size frame.
Yeah, actually, I love that idea. And surprisingly, I have not had that request, but I think that's brilliant. And to be able to do it in the app and push it through, let's get on that, Andrew. I like that idea.
That's just how we've used our IPS frames in the past because the Melissa will send me images now. I had a really old Sylvania just to show you all how if I have a good piece of technology that I love, that I kept that for 12 years and it finally just died. And it was one of the ones you mentioned earlier, Andrew, where you had to plug it in with the USB or you had to put in an SD card. And now I have one that updates over the air. And so I'll see a notification every once in a while that a new photo's been added. But we do a side by side or we'll get that. And that's a nice piece of the experience that I think you could replicate on this without losing a ton of battery.
So so that's something we can see if we can. Just because right now we have a 13-inch, so we didn't think about that yet. It's not big enough to kind of do that. But if we venture out to the larger side, definitely that's something we'll look into.
I think it depends, and this may be something to think about. Just I'm kind of spitballing here, but it depends on how you use that 13-inch screen. If it's on your desk, a split view might make sense for two side by sides. But you're right. If it's hanging on a wall, it really doesn't make sense. But definitely on those larger frames. But Vlad, what were you going to say?
Oh, yeah, no, I was just agreeing that, like, I guess, if you did it on this, you could have maybe like a 6x9 and something. But yeah, I agree. It probably makes more sense for the larger sizes. I was just going to say, at CS, I saw some of the new Spectra 6 products. Like there's, they now make these little round ones that can be integrated in phone cases. I think it's a 1.6 something inch one. And then they have a 280 PPI 7-inch, I believe that's coming to the market. Have you guys like thought about different smaller form factors as well? So like I know there was a Kickstarter campaign of this company called PickPack, which it basically looks like a little Polaroid, and then there's probably like a little 4-inch Spectra panel in there, or like the phone case one I'm talking about, or I've seen some with like little NFC tags where they're kind of like an AirTag where it can show a photo, but it can also track an item or something like that. Have you guys looked at any of the smaller sizes as well?
Yeah, so we have looked at them. It's kind of like, where do you get the best bang for your buck? Like in terms of like pricing and what's going to be the best solution. That's why we launched, with our 13-inch screen size. We just feel that that's the best price point and the best solution. The smaller sizes, there is some price, some cost advantages, but it's nothing significant to where it's going to be that big of a price difference between the current 13-inch that warrants like a secondary offering at this point. There might be some stuff coming. I know that Andrew's been working on some larger screens, and I know that there was one smaller. I think it was a 7-inch, but when I was looking at the pricing delta, just from a costing standpoint, it didn't make sense at that
Mm,
time.
gotcha.
Yeah, and I appreciate that thought process, John. I really do, because the worst thing I think a company can do is kind of just rush to provide something just because it exists, rather than taking your time and making sure you're providing the right thing. And people do ask me, these aren't cheap. They're much less expensive than they were. But if you think about the value of hanging this up, allowing it to sit, and really being an item that you engage with daily, it kind of takes on a different tone, at least to me. And I see that with a lot of the e-ink technologies, because none of them, quite frankly, are inexpensive. And primarily that's because they tend to last a long time. They tend to have good battery life, and they tend to be kind of a niche market still. So I'm curious, at what point do you think that you will start to see those cost savings maybe hit the market? Not necessarily, for you all directly, but, kind of just looking at the market itself. Where do you think that critical mass may be, or where do you think that trajectory is going on when these prices may start coming down or normalizing, I guess, across?
Yeah, I feel as the volume picks up using volumes of scale, the pricing will come down. Everything, all the components, we need to get some more volume going in order to see some price degradation, some costing down. I think as more and more people adopt and are educated, like right now, this is educational and letting people know that, hey, there's a way I can hang something on the wall or place it on my desk and I don't need to power it. I don't think a lot of people know that this solution even exists right now. And hey, this actually looks good. And wait, I could just send a picture using my smartphone to my mom in Ohio or wherever, anywhere in the world. It's kind of cool. And I think that education is the key. So as the market becomes more aware of these types of solutions, then I think the volume will pick up, and that's when we're going to start seeing the costing down in this technology.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I was only asking you to predict the future.
Yeah,
So
I'm
I
not that good.
apologize for putting you on the spot. But
So,
I do
so
think you're right. I think that, to Vlad's point earlier, I've never had anybody who sees this hanging on the wall ask me if it's digital. And
right.
I think that's one of the unique things about the technology itself, is that unless you're right up on it, Vlad, I think you had a certain distance to where you said you could start to see the pixelation. But if you're standing a normal distance, you can't tell that it's not a
Yeah, I mean,
print.
you and I, like, if we're reviewing it, we're pixel peeping, right? You're kind of
Right.
shining lights on it and like pulling the camera in, so that can exaggerate a little bit. But from any like normal viewing distance, it's pretty convincing. So, I was looking at your guys' website. It looks like you guys have some other, I'd say peripherals and things like that. What percent of Aluratek's business is on either the e-ink or just the like art frame side?
So it's a small percentage of our business right now, Vlad, but it is growing. We're actually working with some pretty large retail partners right now to help get this out more mainstream to the consumer market. So I would say small now, but let's revisit that question maybe in 6 or 8 months from now.
Nice. That's great. Yeah, and like you said, it's more about education, right? As more people start learning about this, I'm sure the interest will continue to grow.
This is something that I think we've seen with a lot of e-ink in general, or e-paper devices, or with these panels. Breaking into that large retail market is not easy for a lot of these companies. And, even though you all already have a space and you're already established as a brand, you're still having to figure out the best way to get something like this to market and to be mainstream and be easier for people to purchase. And again, that helps with that volume. That helps with driving down cost. And I think that the education component, to your point, John, can't be overlooked, that you don't know what you're missing until you can actually see this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and props to you guys. I think you guys were one of the first, besides the reflection frame, I think you guys were one of the first to the market.
That's right. Yeah. And, we could also place a product with national retailers, but we also have to, be cognizant of the consumer that's buying it and how they're going to feel about that purchase. And I mean, we could have launched this a couple years ago in the first iteration, and we decided to kind of hold off and wait till it became a little bit more affordable and the technology improved a bit. And then once we were able to feel comfortable from a company standpoint that, hey, we've got a good solution that's actually priced reasonably in the market, that's when we decided to pull the trigger. Yeah, if we could sell these a lot more aggressively, of course, there's going to be a lot more volume. So we do feel that the market's there. It's just still a bit pricey. And for those that can afford it, it's a great solution. But it's not for everybody right now. So it's really the early adopters that are jumping on board. But the feedback's been very positive that we've been receiving on the product so far, and people are really, they love that they don't have to have power. They love that they can just hang this anywhere. So it's working.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, and I'm an old retail guy, John, so I completely understand. I mean, it goes down to, it's not only getting it in the store, it's where does it get placed? And what's the buy-in from the store, the operation to put it front and center and to help with that education campaign about this is why this is something you should look at. So kudos to you all for taking a slower approach to that, because the last thing you want to do is have it enter that market and then not be successful.
Thank you.
Do you guys have any questions for us regarding either our experience or just Spectra in general?
Curious, Vlad, how you got so interested in the technology. You woke up and you're like, Spectra 6, or what was it? What happened?
No, I guess last year at CES, in part, I that's where I met Andrew.
Mhm.
And I remember you were between the two. Like, you guys had the ones with the shiny kind of outside, or the matte ones. And then I also saw the ink poster, like the larger prototypes as well, because they didn't launch until way later last year. And I just thought it was so cool. I felt like it was like the product I'd always been looking for. Like, I've tried some of the LCD frames. I think we bought one way back in the day, and my late grandma, we loaded like hundreds of photos for her, put it in her house, and then she would just sit there like and just stare at the photos sometimes, because she had walls full of photos and whatnot. But she just really enjoyed that we could, every time we visited once a year, my family's from Brazil, so we'd go there and then we could like update some of the new photos, and then she would just sit there and like, but you do have to have it with power. It's always emitting light. It's the benefits of e-ink is that it's a screen, but it's like not a screen in that sense, And I do a lot of photography. I think I draw as well, so I just thought it was a cool medium to either display photography or some of the drawings that I do. I can draw something small and then put it on a larger thing like that, because much larger drawings tend to take a lot longer. So it's a cool way to exhibit art. And like I was telling you earlier, I just think honestly it's the kind of the future of digital art. I even remember when I posted my ink poster video, there were people in the like NFT space that were like, "Oh, this is what I've been looking for," because I don't know everyone's opinions on NFTs. I'm kind of mixed on them, but like, it is a digital art form that has no tangible way to be expressed, right? And so like an e-ink screen, for example, is something that can do that, right? It can give like a life form to a piece of, non-fungible token or something like that. So I think there's just a lot of applications for it. And I personally nitpicky with like cables and stuff. And so having to like dig in a wall sometimes, whether you're up to fire code or not, it can be more of a hassle than it's worth sometimes. So I think those are kind of all the reasons.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on that, I think Vlad and my good friend Jeff Moss got me bit on the bug. So the two of them started talking about it so much, and
yeah, we did some live stream.
Well, and just your videos on them. I mean, showing the technology, showing what it does, showing how it works, and showing the different ways that it can work. And of course, Jeff was all into the art, and he would show some beautiful pieces on these. And then Vlad, with the way you draw, I mean, you draw amazing. And so you put those on there. And then I was like, well, what would these pictures actually look like if I got one in my hand? And then I did, and I'm like, wow. I agree with you. I think it is. I don't think it's just digital art. I think it's for certain people, not for everybody, but for certain people, it may be the new family photo frame. The new way of having down the hall several pieces where you can have that rotate through family photographs, and it changes once a month, or it changes on the seasons or something like that. And I think those are what's so exciting to me about the technology, is that those types of use cases that are very personal depending on who you are.
Yep, that's what we're going after.
Just one last question. So, you guys are in Spectra 6 now. Have you guys ever considered any other aspect of e-ink? Like, I'm talking products, right? Like, so e-note takers, e-readers, things like that.
Well, we talk about it. We've been presented a few different options for products. We feel like right now we just want to focus on, the actual frame, as a solution. And kind of see how that goes. But there's some interesting stuff out there. Maybe we could say for a later conversation.
Well, John, Andrew, I want to be mindful of your time. If you have anything in closing you'd like to say, and just for everybody who's watching, there will be information down in the description on where you can purchase these photo frames, and more information on the frame itself. But John, Andrew, any closing thoughts? Anything you'd like folks to know?
I'd just like to thank you guys, because education, knowledge is power, and getting this information out there and letting customers know, consumers know that there's a product out there that they can basically hang anywhere and place anywhere and not have to power it regularly. It's a cool solution, and letting them know that they can update pictures and photos and using a smartphone app type of solution and send pictures from anywhere in the world. And it opens up a lot of possibilities beyond just, art and family photos, signage. There's a lot of different applications for it. And I have a feeling there's going to be some new applications that we're not even thinking about, that's going to rise here. So, but yeah, just appreciate the opportunity and helping us get the word out about, these new e-ink frames from Aluratek.
I hope it does well, because I really enjoy mine.
Thanks, Ed and Vlad, for this opportunity. As kind of John mentioned, we do want to get people to understand this technology and usage of this product. A lot of people don't know what this is yet. A lot of people don't even know what digital photo frame is yet. All my friends they don't know what it is. And I think, appreciate this opportunity for hopefully some listener and viewer can kind of get idea what this type of picture frame does. I think it is a future. So I mean, we'll get more. I'm sure we'll get some questions, and we can able to answer those if we can.
Thanks for hosting us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all so much. And everybody, thanks for tuning in. And until next time, keep on moving forward, and we will talk to you soon.
Take
Bye,
care.
everybody.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you all again for joining us on this edition of Change Chat. If you are interested in more of this type of content, please follow us on your preferred social media platform and check out the Organizing for Change website.